The phone buzzed on the coffee table, its screen slicing through the dark like a blade. I stared at it, heart pounding, knowing it was another voice note from Ethan the nerd who'd been unraveling my life with his late-night confessions for weeks. I wasn't ready to hear his voice again, not when every word he sent felt like a spark threatening to ignite something I'd spent years burying. It started a month ago, in the chaos of our senior year at NYU. I'm Lucas Harper, the guy who coasts through life on charm and a half-decent jump shot, always keeping people at arm's length. Ethan Nguyen, on the other hand, is the opposite, a lanky computer science major with glasses that slip down his nose and a habit of over-explaining everything. We met in a group project for a sociology class, thrown together by fate or bad luck. He was all awkward smiles and fidgety hands, his voice soft but relentless as he rambled about data algorithms. I barely paid attention, too busy dodging his gaze, which lingered a little too long for comfort. But then the voice notes began. The first one came at 2 a.m. A hesitant, "Hey, Lucas, it's Ethan. Just thinking about you." I didn't reply. I couldn't. My life was a fortress built on the ashes of a childhood where being different meant being a target. Growing up in a small town in Ohio, I'd learned to hide anything that didn't fit the mold of the all-American jock. Ethan's voice, soft and earnest, was a crack in that wall, and I wasn't ready to let it crumble. Each night, the buzz of my phone became a ritual. Ethan's messages were short at first, random thoughts about class, a joke about our professor's bad tie. But they grew longer, more personal. He talked about his family, how his parents fled Vietnam and built a life in Brooklyn, how he felt like he was always chasing their approval. He shared his fears of not fitting in, of being too much or not enough. And then, 3 nights ago, he said it, "Lucas, I think I'm falling for you. I know you probably don't feel the same, but I had to say it." I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his words looping in my head. Falling for me. Ethan didn't know meant the real me. He saw the guy who cracked jokes and shrugged off everything, not the one who'd spent years dodging feelings like landmines. I wanted to delete the message, to block his number, but my thumb froze every time. Instead, I let the voice notes pile up, unanswered, a digital graveyard of his courage and my cowardice. The next day, we had to meet for our project. The library was crowded, the air thick with the smell of old books and coffee. Ethan sat across from me, his laptop open, his fingers tapping nervously. "Did you, get my last message?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. I shrugged, eyes glued to my screen. "Haven't checked my phone much." A lie, and we both knew it. His face fell, just for a second, before he forced a smile and changed the subject. Guilt twisted in my gut, but I pushed it down. I wasn't ready to face what his words stirred in me, a pull I'd felt before, but always buried. That night, another voice note arrived. "I saw you today, Lucas, and I wanted to say so much more. I don't know why I keep doing this. Maybe I'm an idiot, but your laugh, it's like the best part of my day." I listened to it 3 times, each word chipping away at my defenses. I wanted to respond, to tell him he wasn't an idiot, but the fear of what that meant held me back. What if I let him in and it all fell apart? What if I wasn't strong enough to be the person he thought I was? By the end of the week, we were supposed to present our project. Ethan suggested we practice at his place, a tiny apartment in Brooklyn he shared with his sister. I agreed, mostly because I couldn't think of an excuse fast enough. His place was a mess of books, fairy lights, and mismatched furniture, but it felt warm, like a home that held stories. We sat on his couch, laptops open, but the air was heavy with everything unsaid. "Lucas, He started, his voice shaky. I know you've been ignoring my messages. I need to know if I'm wasting my time. His eyes locked on mine, and for the first time, I couldn't look away. There was no hiding from the hope in his gaze, or the fear that mirrored my own. I opened my mouth, but no words came. The fortress I'd built was crumbling, and I didn't know how to stop either if I even wanted to. The silence in Ethan's apartment was deafening, his question hanging between us like a tightrope. I could feel the weight of his hope, his fear, and my own indecision pressing down on me. My heart screamed to say something, anything, but my mouth stayed shut, locked by years of self-preservation. Ethan leaned back, running a hand through his messy hair. Forget it, he muttered, forcing a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Let's just finish this stupid presentation. He turned to his laptop, but his fingers trembled as they typed, betraying the calm he was trying to project. I hated myself for making him feel like he'd crossed a line when all he'd done was be honest. We stumbled through our practice, the words mechanical, the tension suffocating. When we finished, I grabbed my jacket, desperate to escape. See you tomorrow, I mumbled, avoiding his gaze. But as I reached the door, Ethan called out, Lucas, wait. I turned, and there he was, standing in the middle of the room, clutching his phone like it was a lifeline. I'm not going to keep sending you voice notes if you don't want them, he said, his voice cracking. But I need you to tell me to stop. Just say it, and I will. My throat tightened. I wanted to tell him to stop, to make it easy, to rebuild the walls around my heart. But the truth was, I didn't want him to stop. His voice had become a tether, pulling me towards something I'd spent my life running from. I don't know. I managed, the words pathetic even to my own ears. Ethan's shoulders slumped, but he nodded. Okay. I'll wait. And with that, he turned away, leaving me to walk out into the cold Brooklyn night, my mind a storm of regret and longing. The next day, our presentation went off without a hitch, but the distance between us was palpable. Ethan kept his eyes on the projector, his voice steady but devoid of the warmth I'd grown used to. Our classmates clapped, oblivious to the war raging inside me. Afterward, he packed up quickly, muttering something about a study group. I watched him leave, feeling like I'd lost something I hadn't even claimed. That night, no voice note came. The silence was worse than the buzz of my phone had ever been. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every message he'd sent. His laugh, his fears, his confession, they were all pieces of a puzzle I was too scared to put together. But the absence of his voice left a hole I couldn't ignore. By the third night of silence, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone and typed out a message. Ethan, I'm sorry. I've been a coward. Can we talk? My thumb hovered over the send button, heart racing. What was I doing? Was I ready to face him? Before I could overthink it, I hit send. His reply came within minutes. My place. Tomorrow night. 8 p.m. No emojis. No warmth. Just a time and place. I didn't know if it was an olive branch or a final stand, but I knew I had to show up. The next evening, I stood outside Ethan's apartment, my stomach in knots. When he opened the door, his expression was guarded, his glasses slightly fogged from the warmth of the room. You came, he said, stepping aside to let me in. We sat on his couch again, the same one where everything had started to unravel. I listened to your voice notes, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. All of them. I just didn't know how to respond. Ethan's eyes softened, but he didn't speak, waiting for me to continue. I took a deep breath, the words spilling out before I could stop them. I grew up in a place where being different wasn't okay. My dad, my friends, they'd make jokes, say things that made me feel like I had to hide who I was. I've been hiding so long. Ethan, I don't even know who I am anymore. He reached out, his hand hovering over mine before pulling back. You don't have to hide with me, he said softly. I see you, Lucas. The real you. And I'm not going anywhere. His words hit like a tidal wave, washing away years of fear. For the first time, I let myself imagine what it would be like to let him in, to let myself feel what I'd been denying. But fear is a stubborn thing, and even as my heart leaned toward him, my mind screamed to run. The fairy lights in Ethan's apartment cast a soft glow, turning his small living room into a haven of warmth. But inside me, a storm raged. His words, "I'm not going anywhere," echoed in my head, daring me to take a step I'd never taken before. I don't know how to do this, I admitted, my voice raw. I've never let myself feel this way. Not out loud. My hands clenched into fists, trying to hold onto the last threads of control. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes steady behind his glasses. You don't have to have it all figured out, Lucas. I don't either. I just know that when I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe easier. His honesty was a knife, cutting through my defenses. I wanted to tell him everything, how his voice notes had become the only thing keeping me grounded some nights, how his laugh made my chest ache in a way I didn't understand. But the words caught in my throat, tangled in years of shame and fear. Instead, I reached for my phone, pulling up his latest voice note. Play it, I said, my voice shaking. I want to hear it again. With you. Ethan's eyes widened, but he nodded, taking my phone. He pressed play, and his voice filled the room, soft and vulnerable. Lucas, I know I'm probably freaking you out, but every time I see you, I feel like I'm waking up for the first time. I just wish you'd let me in. The message ended, and the silence was electric. I looked at him, really looked at him, the way his hair fell into his eyes, the way his hands fidgeted with the hem of his shirt. And for the first time, I let myself see him not as a threat, but as a possibility. I'm scared, I whispered, but I don't want to keep pretending I don't hear you. Ethan's breath hitched, and before I could second-guess myself, I leaned forward and kissed him. It was clumsy, hesitant, but it felt like coming home. His lips were warm, his hands finding mine, grounding me in a moment I'd spent my life running from. When we pulled apart, his smile was brighter than the city lights outside. Does this mean you'll stop ignoring my voice notes? He teased, but his voice was thick with emotion. I laughed, the sound surprising even me. Maybe. But you better not stop sending them. For the next week, we were inseparable. We studied together, ate cheap pizza on his couch, and talked until the sun came up. Ethan's voice notes didn't stop, but now I answered them, sometimes with my own. Each one was a step toward something new, something terrifying and beautiful. But the world outside his apartment wasn't as forgiving. One night, we were walking back from a diner, laughing about nothing, when I noticed a group of guys staring. Their whispers carried, sharp and cruel, and my old instincts kicked in. I dropped Ethan's hand, stepping away, my heart pounding with the fear I thought I'd left behind. Ethan noticed, his face falling. Lucas, what's wrong? Nothing, I lied, but my voice was tight. Just, let's keep moving. He didn't push, but the hurt in his eyes was unmistakable. That night, no voice note came. I lay awake, hating myself for letting fear win again. I knew I had to make a choice, Ethan or the safety of my old walls. The next day, I found him in the library, buried in his laptop. I'm sorry, I said, sitting across from him. Last night, I panicked. I'm still figuring this out, but I don't want to lose you. Ethan looked up, his expression soft but serious. I get it, Lucas. It's not easy, but I need you to try for us. I nodded, knowing he was right. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about us, about the possibility of a life where I didn't have to hide. And for the first time, I wanted to fight for it. The weeks that followed were a blur of courage and vulnerability. Ethan and I carved out a fragile space for ourselves, built on late-night talks and stolen moments in his apartment. But the world kept pressing in, testing the strength of what we were building. One evening, we decided to go to a campus open mic night. Ethan wanted to share a poem he'd written, something he'd never done before. I could see the nerves in the way he adjusted his glasses, but his determination was fiercer than his fear. As we sat in the crowded cafe, I felt a swell of pride watching him take the stage. His poem was raw, a tapestry of his life, his parents' sacrifices, his struggles to belong, and the quiet hope he'd found in love. The room was silent, captivated, and when he finished, the applause was thunderous. I clapped until my hands hurt, my heart full of him. But as we left, a voice cut through the night. Yo, Harper, didn't know you were into that. One of my old teammates sneered, his eyes flicking between me and Ethan. The words were a punch, dragging me back to the kid who'd learned to hide to survive. I froze, but Ethan didn't. He stepped forward, his voice steady. Yeah, he is. Got a problem with it. The guy laughed, but it was hollow, and he backed off. Ethan turned to me, his eyes searching. You okay? I wasn't, but I nodded, taking his hand. It was a small act, but it felt like a declaration. For the first time, I didn't pull away. That night, Ethan sent me a voice note. Lucas, I'm proud of you. I know it's hard, but you're stronger than you think. I listened to it over and over, letting his words sink in. He was right, I was stronger. Because of him. As graduation loomed, the future felt uncertain. Ethan had a job lined up in Seattle, while I was still figuring out my path. The thought of losing him was unbearable, but I knew I couldn't keep hiding behind fear. One night, I showed up at his apartment with a plan. I'm coming with you, I said, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. I don't know what's next, but I know I wanted to be with you. Ethan's eyes widened, and then he laughed, pulling me into a hug. You're crazy, he said, but his voice was thick with joy. But I'm glad you're my kind of crazy. We stood there, wrapped in each other, the city humming outside. It wasn't a perfect ending, life isn't that neat. But it was ours, built on the courage to be seen, to be heard, to love without shame. Ethan's voice notes had started it all, each one a thread pulling me toward him, toward myself. Years later, I'd look back on those late-night messages as the map that led me home. In a world that tried to tell us who we should be, we chose each other. And that was enough.